You can still try on national.
Too big, it's too big.
And there's research behind that.
Hi, Robert.
That'd be great. Great. Let me try to- Figures it out.
Yeah. But I'll tell you where I got it. You got it?
It's a bird.
And I think it's already somewhere. And the way you distinguish it, I don't think that's that can.
All right.
It's better you can stop. I like that. It has this.
Probably.
Oh, what is that?
Career.
It's just.
So probably done.
What's happening?
My God, it's been long.
It's a spring.
Okay, everybody, hello.
So I'm very excited about.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. So nice to be together. And excited to open up the words of Torah and begin again with our exploration and discovery of the week's Parsha. This week is a double Parsha, so double the fun. Parshat Matot Maseh. We are gonna actually study particularly the verses of Maseh, which which means journey. Okay? Matot is tribes. Maseh is journey. We are going to focus on journeys today. And before we do, let's all just sort of allow ourselves to be here in this moment. You've all taken a journey to get here, whether it was close, whether it was far, whether it was a schlep, whether you hit traffic, whether it was easy sailing, whatever it was, your journey led you here to this moment. To this space, a space surrounded by the sacred wisdom of our tradition, where our Torahs reside within the room and also on the page and also in our hearts. Torah is a light. It is a tree of wisdom, of knowledge. We are part of those. We are the branches to its roots. And so today, when we open up the Torah portion, and we begin to read, I want you to think of these words as being words that are sharing in many ways and reflecting the journey that you all have been on and that you currently are on. The words are the words of our people's story, but it is also a reflection of the personal stories that we each carry. And every time we study it and invite the divine presence, the Shekhinah, into our midst, we are allowing that story to unfold in majestic and divine ways. And so today, another portion, another section of our story unfolds. Let us be inspired by one another's stories and also be enriched by the story of our tradition. We're going to begin with our blessing for the study of Torah. So let me place it here on the screen for everyone. Okay, and let's read together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who made us holy with your mitzvot and commanded us to study words of Torah. Beautiful. So what I'm going to do is I printed out, because the Torah portion, the verses that we're going to be reading aloud today are 50 verses. I didn't want to print, I didn't want to just go slide by slide. I wanted you to have it in front of you. And for our friends online, I'm going to have it on the screen in Safari for you. So you have also the Hebrew and the English. Let me just get it for you. The other thing I was going to mention to all of you who are joining us regularly is that if you'd like to purchase a Torah book, because we'll be studying the words of the Parsha every week, if you'd like, there's many different versions of the book of Torah. We have some here. We have some, if you want, one of mine that I use just because I love like the transportability of it and it's flexible and movable, is the JPS, the Hebrew English Tanakh. It's a great version of it. You can get a little bit bigger, you can get a little bit smaller, but every week we're gonna be reading from these pages. So
I have to, you know, they
So
have
if
the
you want-
Safari app.
you do have, I have Safari up here. You can use the app on Safari digitally. You can start to bring your own Tanakh if you would like. You can use the ones that we have up here. Just wanted to offer that to you so that if you wanted to make notes or carry your own book along the way, you are more than welcome to.
They sell it on Amazon,
Oh, yeah,
is it reasonable?
I'm sure it is. And if not, you let me know. I'm happy to help make that
I'll
reasonable.
buy it on Amazon.
Yes. We can talk about it, the cost, but yes, it's on Amazon, but if you need it, you just let me know. Okay, so we're on page 362. If you have the book, you have the printout in front of you. I wanted you to have the printout, as I mentioned today, so that you have, so I wasn't making 52 pages for you of the translation. So you actually have it in the book and we have it on the screen. So let's start from the beginning. Today I'm gonna read the first 50 verses of Maseh for a reason. Okay, we're gonna read each line of these 50 verses of the opening section of Parsha Maseh. As I read, remember what is your responsibility as I'm reading? To do what?
Listen.
Listen, right? That's a good start.
And see what quotes I was saying.
See what catches your attention, underline, circle, what catches your attention, what do you hear? Okay, in these words, okay? All right. These were the marches of the Israelites who started out from the land of Egypt, troop by troop, in the charge of Moses and Aaron. Moses recorded the starting points of their various marches as directed by Adonai. Their marches by starting points were as follows. So it's before we continue, what stands out to you? What do you hear? What's interesting? Troop by troop, okay. What else?
How did you record?
I'm sorry?
How did you record it?
Okay, how did he so the question you have is, how did he record it? Moses recorded the starting points. How did he record it? Okay.
With directed by the Lord.
Okay, directed by God. What else?
It's the idea that is recording, and that's there's an importance to the route.
Say it again.
It's important about the route, the
route.
that he's recording it. There's a purpose to how he wants it to go.
Okay, great. So here are the things I want you to pay attention to as we continue reading on. Okay? Moses, right now, what he is doing, we are at the ending of the book of Numbers. The Israelites, remember contextually where we are, they've already journeyed, they've already had their wilderness journey. They're just steps away from the promised land, of inhabiting the land. Remember the last Torah portion that we read, they were apportioning out the land, so people now know what's gonna happen when they go into the land, where they're gonna live, right? What's interesting here is we stop before we actually enter the land, we're at a pause. And Moses is going to remind us, these were the marches of the Israelites. This was the journey we took. Okay? Moses recorded the starting points. Here were the starting points. Here's where we started. Here's where we marched. Here's the path and the route that we took. Okay? Let's continue. 3. They set out from Ramses in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month. It was on the morrow of the Passover offering that the Israelites started out defiantly in plain view of all the Egyptians. Is that not the greatest thing? It could have easily just said they began when they left Egypt. No. Right? They started out on the 15th day of the first month. It was on the morrow of the Passover offering. And the Israelites started out how? Defiantly. In plain view of all the Egyptians. Remember from where they were coming, from a place of bondage, enslavement, darkness. And they started out on their journey from Egypt defiantly, in plain view. Right? Remember, every word's important. The Egyptians, meanwhile, were burying those among them whom Adonai had struck down, every male firstborn, whereby Adonai executed judgment on their gods. Right? Moses is sharing this with the people who didn't remember. These are not the generation that experienced the redemption. This is the generation that was born in the wilderness. So remember, we're recounting and we're recalling this journey. We're reminding those who are about to enter the land, let me remind you from where we've come. Okay?
So what you're saying is it's like 40 years
Yeah,
into it.
right. Right? This is the generation that was born in the wilderness.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just not. Where were the Egyptians that they could see the Israelites if the Israelites were 40 years away from them?
Okay, right. This is Moses is retelling the story.
Oh, they're not.
This group right now is hearing the story
Okay,
in
got it.
plain view of the promised land.
Okay.
Right? They're about to inhabit the land. Moses is retelling them about the journey, this whole journey. Yeah, Tara.
So isn't it kind of like this is a precursor to Devarim? So Devarim is Moses' last sermon. He's retelling because there were people not born when this happened. So maybe this is the kind of hinting that there's gonna be more stories coming.
Right, we're gonna open up the book of Deuteronomy next week. Where it's Moses' final sermons, as it's called, or final reflection, right? But this is important because it's not, this is, the book of Numbers is gonna close. We've taken census, we've counted one another, we've apportioned the land. And now before we inhabit the land, it's important for Moses and God to retell the story to this generation, not just of what you're about to experience, but from where we've literally come, our journey, the steps that we've taken to get here. Okay? The Israelites set out from Ramses and encamped at Sukkot. They set out from Sukkot and encamped at Etham, which is on the edge of the wilderness. They set out from Etham and turned about toward, let me look at the Hebrew, toward Pitaroth, which faces Baal Zephon, and they encamped before Migdol. Hold on 1 second. They set out from Pnei Harioth and passed through the sea into the wilderness, and they made a 3 days journey in the wilderness of Etham and encamped at Marah. What do you hear? What words do you hear over and over again?
Egyptian.
It can't.
Encamped. Thank you. What else? So they set out and they encamped.
Yeah.
This is really important to tune our ear. It's intentional, okay? And we're gonna understand a little bit from the commentators as to why. But for our ears, it's intentional, and I want you to hear the words. They set out from and they encamped. They set out, they encamped. Set out is that movement forward. Encamped, they set up camp. They built their tents and they dwelt there temporarily until it was time to stand and set out. They set out, they encamped. They set out, they encamped. What's interesting here is that interesting things happen at each of these places. But is that the intention to share that part?
No.
No. Right? Not necessarily. From what we know right now, what the text and what the Torah is trying to share with us and make us focus on is the movement and the settling. The movement and the settling. The set out, the encampment. Not necessarily what happened there. We know what happened there. For now, the set out and the encampment. Margaret? Oh, hold on 1 second. Yeah. hold on.
Maybe it's a foolish question, but because
No,
you see
foolish.
the word sukkah. For some reason, I assumed that that's more of a not modern holiday or whatever, what it began. Because, I mean, why are they celebrating a festival of this?
No, so they set out from, that was a place. Sukkot,
All Sukkot?
yes.
Oh, never, okay.
And then also those temporary booths are actually what's the sukkah is the temporary booth, which the holiday is named for.
Sukkot?
It's a booth, yeah,
Okay,
okay?
thank you.
So the words that you're gonna see some interesting words that are gonna remind you of other things, and that's great, that's important. Okay? All right. Let's continue, verse 9. They set out from Marah and came to Elim. There were 12 springs in Elim and 70 palm trees, so they encamped there. We have a new detail. Why?
There was water, food, and shade.
Okay, there was water. I don't know about food, but there was water. What's the food?
Coconuts.
But what food will come to the Israelites?
Yeah.
The manna, right? But here, there's something that provides them something that they needed at this point, right? They needed shade, they needed water. By this point, our tradition teaches us that by this point in the journey is when the Israelites say, we're thirsty, give us water, right? How dare you take us out of Egypt to die here in the wilderness, right? Without any sustenance to nourish us, okay? So here, they stop here because there's water. They set out from Elim and encamped by the Sea of Reeds. They set out from the Sea of Reeds and encamped in the wilderness of Sin. Not sin as in sin, right? They set out from the wilderness of Sin and encamped at Dovka. They set out from Dovka and encamped at Alush. They set out from Alush and encamped at Rephidim. It was there that the people had no water to drink. What happens at Rephidim?
Miriam dies.
No, but close. We're gonna learn about that later, that she dies because when we learn that there's no water, right? The wells dry up. But at Rephidim, this is the first scene of the rock water where Moses strikes the rock, right? The first time. They set out from the wilderness of Sinai and encamped at Kivrot Hatava. They set out from Kivrot Hatava and encamped at Hazeroth. They set out from Hazeroth and encamped at Rithmah. They set out from Rithmah and encamped at Rimon Perez. They set out from Rimon Perez and encamped at Livnat. They set out from Livnah and encamped at Risa. They set out from Risa and encamped at Kehelat. They set out from Kehelat and encamped at Mount Shefer. They set out from Mount Shefer and encamped at Haradah. They set out from Hadarah and encamped at Machelot. They set out from Machelot and encamped at Tahat. They set out from Tahat and encamped at Terah. They set out from Terah and encamped at Mikah. They set out from Mikah and encamped at Hashmonah. They set out from Hashmonah and encamped at Moserot. They set out from Moserot and encamped at Bnei Yaakan. They set out from Bnei Yaakan and encamped at Or Hagidah. They set out from Or Hagigah and encamped at Yothba. They set out from Yothba and encamped at Avronah. They set out from Avronah and encamped at Etzion Geber. They set out from Etzion Geber and encamped in the wilderness of Zin. That is Kadesh. One of the things I love so much about that, Kadesh, the same root, Kuf Dalet Shin, means what? Kadosh, holiness. One of my favorite spots that they dwelled in the desert, in the space of Kadesh, of holiness. Is that not beautiful? I love that. They set out from Kadesh and camped at Mount Hor on the edge of the land of Edom. And here we go, verse 38. Aaron, the priest, ascended Mount Hor at the command of Adonai and died there in the 40th year after the Israelites had left the land of Egypt, on the first day of the 5th month. Aaron was 123 years old when he died on Mount Hor. And the Canaanite king of Arad, who dwelt in the Negev in the land of Canaan, learned of the coming of the Israelites. Now, interestingly enough, we've just read a number of they set out, they encamped, 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 and then we pause from the recounting of the encampment and the setting out. And we pause with what?
Aaron died.
The
With promise.
reminder that Aaron has died. And when he died atop this mountain. But that's it. Aaron dies in the 40th year of the journey. And we take a moment to pause and remember. And how old he was when he died on the mountain. Okay? And then there's a reminder to the people who are listening. And the Canaanite king of Arad, who dwelt in the Negev in the land of Canaan, learned of the coming of the Israelites. They've come into knowing that the Israelites are on their way. They set out from Mount Hor and encamped at Zalmonah. They set out from Zalmonah and encamped at Punon. They set out from Punon and encamped at Ovoth. They set out from Ovoth and encamped at Yabarim in the territory of Moab. They set out from Eim and encamped at Divon Gad. They set out from Divon Gad and encamped at Almon Divlathim. They set out from Almon Divlathim and encamped in the hills of Avarim before Nebo. What happens at Nebo? We don't know yet. They set out from the hills of Avarim and encamped at the steppes of Moab at the Jordan near Jericho. They encamped by the Jordan from Beth Yismoth as far as Abel Shittim in the steppes of Moab. In the steppes of Moab at the Jordan near Jericho, Adonai spoke to Moses. Now, what we will know and what we will learn later on, not in this chapter, but that at Nebo is where Moses ascends and Moses dies. Okay? So what did you hear? And why is it important that we just spent the first 21 minutes of class reading those 50 verses?
Moses was very detailed.
Okay, Moses is very detailed. Jack, I see you. Raise your hand. Go ahead.
This is a very cold, materialistic, military assessment of what happened. It's a story that not all of these people know, and there is no emotion in this at all. This is the route we took, and this is how we went from Egypt to here now on our 40th year.
Yeah. So why do we do it?
I've told us to.
Jack, why do we do it?
Why do we do it?
Why is it written that way?
I think it's written for posterity in that this is the route that was taken. It's a very cold military assessment of how they traveled from one place to another without any emotion in it at all. It's just a plan of movement.
Beautiful. Okay, Bobby.
Well, I kind of disagree with Jack.
Whoa.
Because there's another level to read it on, because when we tell our grandchildren, well, we got married here, and then we went here, and then we went here, and then we went here, we give them a description of where we moved in our life. And we don't tell them what happened at each station. We just tell them where we started and where we wound up. And I think the point is, like this poem, that life is a never-ending journey. That we go from point to point, whether it's time, whether it's place, whatever it is, we keep moving forward.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Hold on one second, Sylvie.
There's another portion in Torah that instead of having commas and making it, fast and saying it, that it spells out every word. I can't remember what it is. But, do you,
Many, I mean, even just 2 weeks ago when we read the census, it's
Yeah.
the same thing, right? Like, from this is so-and-so from the tribe of so-and-so, son of this, and there's this many of them, and this one and this one, and the son of this, right? The same kind
but
of
that's
form.
different because there were different numbers. But this is the encamped and we went and the encamped, I think it's just to show the importance,
Beautiful,
I don't know.
no? It is your interpretation, right? So to demonstrate the importance, to talk about the movement forward along the journey. A very clear and detailed accounting of where we have been, what we have seen, where we have encamped, very detailed listing without any embellishment, without any of the backstory. Right? Moses, they get that. And also Moses in his head is saying, I'm gonna tell them that in the next book that we're about to open, the book of Deuteronomy. I'm gonna relive all of the amazing moments, right? This is intentional. This is not about reliving the moments. This is about recounting the journey and the steps taken along the way. Maddie.
I kind of want to build on what Bobby said, that we gloss over it during the Passover Seder. We say, they went over the desert and 40 years and 40 nights, 40 days and 40 nights, 40 years. This really describes the journey as not only purposeful, but laborious.
Mm.
It infers that it wasn't just, okay, we traveled, because in the story, today traveling is not the same thing as this.
Right.
And I think
That's
that,
beautiful.
I agree with her, I think that it shows that they're telling the importance, how important it is that they're gonna be going to the final destination. What it did take to get there, how important this destination's gonna be, because of what they're going.
Nice, beautiful. Spencer and then Rashina?
So I think like you said, Moses will be telling all the miracles in Deuteronomy and later on. He's setting the scene. He's saying, this is what we did, this is where we were, kind of setting up the stage and the miracles occurred here, and so they have context when he tells the later story.
Okay,
Also, he mentions that they had water when they needed it, and shade at one point, God provided that. And another point, Aaron died, and we all remember that, and here's where he's buried. I feel like that's a way of setting the stage for later saying, and this miracle happened. And we got water from rock, and that's why I can't join you in Israel.
okay, beautiful.
I was gonna say, just from like the sentence structures of being like extraordinarily like repetitive. It's really an interesting choice because it can draw people off from like staying attentive. Which is interesting because like we're just being asked to spend 1 minute reading something, and this is like a very hard living that's taking place in it.
Yeah,
It's like very different from the experience of living it. And then your brain, when you're reading it, is like picking up those little extensions to the sentences that you've already expected to hear next. So like those little extras, we like perk up and pay attention to. It's just, I think it's a very clever way to, yes, it's like military and like does not have its truth by truth. It's there's not like a personal attachment to it, but it reads this way for a reason.
beautiful. So that's it. So I want everyone to, before we dive into the commentaries, I want everyone to sort of just sit and for a moment, think back on your own personal journey. And how you think about your journey. And how you would respond if someone said, tell me about your journey. I don't, no one needs to do that now. You're not gonna say it out loud. I just want you to take a moment and just reflect upon the journey of your life up until this point. What do you see in your mind? What points immediately come to mind? Who do you see? What do you have to reach deep internally in order to pull back up for yourself? And what just immediately comes to mind when you even hear journey? It's an interesting exercise to actually stop and think about our journey points, the points along our journey. Most often, we think in large pictures, right? We think about experiences. Recount the Israelites' journey and what happened there. Sometimes we'll just say, splitting of the sea. Revelation at Sinai, they got the Torah. Those are the big moments. What's beautiful here is that the Torah is stopping and recounting when we stopped and when we set out again. These seemingly small points along the way, and yet they're worth mentioning because each of those moments is what led us to the next one. We rose up, then we went to the next one and we encamped and something happened there. And then we stood and we moved on. In our own lives, that exercise of actually pausing and remembering and recounting those moments along the way is really profound. And the Torah is asking us to do that, modeling this experience of Moses in the desert. Let's see what our sages teach. I have it up on the screen. I'm gonna have it everyone up on the screen. Yeah.
It's just like the way we would look at it in preparation. Our holy days. Was to have reflection.
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
We're leading up to the high holy days. Is it about us starting to have reflection? About our lives, what has happened, where we
Yeah.
are, all that.
You can definitely make a parallel to that for sure.
Highlight.
Oh, Alan, go ahead, sorry.
We know they set out and they encamp in a number of different places, but it doesn't say what travails or problems they had during this.
Right, not at this point, right? This is just about the moments and the points, like when you're you used to like chart your course, you're gonna go drive from here to there and you had to actually chart the course, not like Apple phone just, tells you go, right? That you actually had to make like points and we're gonna stop at this point and then we're gonna go and we're gonna stop at this point, we'll stay over and then we'll go to this point and we'll go to that point, right? Like you had to physically draw it and hit it and all that stuff. Or like actually like shockingly looked at a map, right? Like
I had to do that.
This is-
when I was little.
right? Like this is a different experience. It's not about all the things that happened there yet. It's really just about acknowledging the points along the way. So what Rashi says is very interesting. Rashi focuses on these are the journeys. Elamase. These are the journeys of the children of Israel. Why are these stations, these moments in time recorded here? Rashi says, in order to make known the loving acts of the omnipresent, that although God had decreed against them to make them move about and wander in the wilderness, you should not think that they wandered and moved about without cessation from one station to another station all the 40 years, and that they had no rest. For you see that there are here only 42 stages. This is excerpt from the work of Rabbi Moshe. Rabbi Tanchuma gave another explanation of it, a parable. It may be compared to the case of a king whose son was ill and whom he took to a distant place to cure him. When they returned home, the father began to enumerate all the stages, saying to him, here we slept, here we caught cold, here you had the headache, etc. So what is Rashi saying here? Eila Masa, these are the journeys. What is he saying?
Different stages.
Different stages, right? Like it's important to recognize each of the stages. It's important to remember, it's not just you were ill and you were cured. Right? Something happened and now it's fixed. But that time in between the moments is significant. Just as significant as the overall journey. Yeah, Maddie, did
I
you?
think it also, in no words, it was a process. It wasn't haphazard. There was a process, and maybe it wasn't planned, but from station to station, it might have been planned. Or it might have been planned, okay, we'll stay here this amount of time, then we'll all gather up and then we'll leave. So I think he's making a point that it wasn't random wandering.
Right, this wasn't random, right? And it wasn't like they just got up and they went and they journeyed for 40 years and then they got to Israel. Right, like this, right, the Rashi here is saying, no, it's important for us to realize they didn't just go from Egypt to the promised land. They didn't just go from Egypt and then experience lots of different things along the way and then make it to the promised land. But they paused, they rested. This wasn't a journey of continuous movement. This wasn't just a journey of continuous movement. If we stop and think about our lives for just a moment, who feels like they're on a journey of continuous movement? Going, 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 going. Next thing, accomplish, to-do list, going. Constantly in motion. Right? But the Torah is telling us here, or teaching us here, what Rashi's pointing out to us, is that sometimes it does feel that way. Sometimes it's hard to remember when our feet stop. It's really hard sometimes to think about the moments when our brain has stopped moving, right? If you think about your mind going all the time, it's hard to remember the times when it's just at peace and quiet. What Rashi's suggesting here, I would argue, is that it's important too, even as we're in motion and moving forward, to find that place along the way where we stop. And not just to do it, but to reflect on it. This is a reflection moment here. Moses is reflecting on the journey. We got from here to there, but there was a stop in between. We encamped, stopped, we took a breath. We recognized that we didn't have to always be moving in order to get to the promised land. It's okay to stop. They left a place of darkness, knowing that they're going to a place of promise and light, but they didn't just continuously run. They stopped. It took time to get there. There are stages along the way. Lauren, did you have something?
Yes, it's not as, that sounds very positive to me. I also took like a different turn. Sometimes you kind of, there's the unexpected and you have to stop because of illness.
Yes.
Or things that aren't planned or pleasant. So I was thinking that also is a time for reflection.
Yes.
And I
Beautiful.
saw that with the Cain, the parable.
I'm so glad that you brought that up too, right? And it's even in those moments, as difficult as they are, and maybe as painful as they are, as anxiety provoking as they are, to also reflect on those too, right? I think that's the power of the story at the end, right? That here we slept, here we caught cold, here you had the headache, all these things. But sometimes those are the hardest moments to reflect on. And yet we learn and we can grow tremendously from reflecting on how we were able to move through them. Nice. Someone over here, Marcia, and Mark.
Well, as I think Lauren started to say, it doesn't really tell you what caused the encampment.
Right.
You know, okay, when I'm bothered, but you don't really know what the situations were between step one and crossing over to crossing.
Right.
So what's the answer?
Well, I mean, eventually we will know, like, we do know, it happens throughout the story. Like, throughout the Torah, we know when they get there, we know what happens, we know why they've stopped. But that's not the purpose of this moment. The purpose of this reflection moment is different than trying to unpack and understand the why. We can oftentimes be very good at that, and we can also get wrapped up in that. Right? It's like a rabbit hole. You can fall down that rabbit hole and constantly try to understand why did this happen? But why did I do that? But why? Right? How come that? Right? Okay, I'm not saying that there's no space for that. For sure there's space for that. But here it's different. The Torah is trying to teach you something different. It's unpacking and reflecting on what happened for a different reason. To recognize that there's value in the pausing, that there's value in the stopping, and that we don't always have to be moving forward. We'll get there. We'll get to the space. Martha, then Marcia.
They stopped, I think, to rejuvenate themselves so they could move forward.
What an idea, right? That's also called self-care. If we want to bring it into the lens of our own world, right? There is a lot of power in caring for the self and stopping along your journey. Some things we can be even better, right?
Isn't that what Shabbat is for though, to stop and reflect and then just take a pause from our life and just go?
Yes, it is the gift of breath at the end of a week. It is the powerful blessing that our tradition has granted to us. This powerful, powerful time of rest that doesn't happen once a year or even once a month, but happens every week. It is we set out on our week and we encamped on Shabbat. We set out from Shabbat and engaged in our week, and we encamped on Shabbat. That is a beautiful way to think about the journey of our lives week by week. We set out to do, we set out to accomplish, we set out to do all the wonderful things. We set out to deal with the challenges, we set out to dwell in some times of discomfort. And yet, we know that the encampment of Shabbat is days away. And how we dwell there, that's up to us. Yeah.
Sometimes it's very fearful not knowing what's coming down the pike. But I think after 40-something times of moving on, you learn to get over your fear. And I think maybe this was a way of showing people God's with you. Don't fear this.
Oh, beautiful. That's very nice too. 42 starts and stops. I'm coming, Liliana, and then Maddie.
If you would take the time to reflect on the stage of your journey, you can learn a lesson that then you can apply for your next journey. And you don't have to invent the wheel again.
Right? They're about to embark on a brand new journey. Settling in the land. They'll no longer be wandering. They're going to experience a shift in who they are. From wanderers to settlers, settling in a space. That's amazing. And yet, in order to prepare themselves, they reflect on the movement of their journey. Maddie.
I mean, this is kind of a big question, and I just wanted your opinion or your knowledge about it. To what degree was this God guided in terms of God, charting out this journey versus man's self-will in determining again the course and the direction? I often wonder, is this because God made this happen, or this incident crossed my path, or the timing, or was it just chance or a group of decisions that made it happen coincidentally?
Wow. So let me take this one piece at a time. So that is a beautiful theological conversation. Individual just as much as it is communal. If we look at what you're asking in terms of the question overlaid on the text of Torah, then you are going to answer the question from a biblical theology, from a biblical theological perspective. Which is going to be different if I take your question and overlay it onto my own life, which would be a different theological conversation. From a biblical theological perspective, from the Torah, from when this is written, let's say, for the characters in the Bible and our when we put on our scholarly lens of looking at the Bible and understanding from a biblical theological perspective, that answer is going to be different than how I would answer it from a personal theological perspective. What do I mean by that? Meaning, if we're going to look at it from the shot level, from the surface level of the text, the journey is dictated by God. God tells Moses, go to this next place. God tells Moses, tell the Israelites to stand up and we're moving forward. God tells Moses, we now will move on and you will this, and right, it is governed, directed by God. From a shot biblical, just biblical theology. If you, Maddie, said to me, I want to understand what my relationship with God is in terms of the decisions and the direction of my life, well, that's going to be a different conversation. Your personal connection, your personal understanding of how God engages with you in your life is one in which you have the opportunity to construct through your own understanding, your own view, your own heart, your own partnership with the divine. That's not for me to say, Maddie, God tells you how to live your life. Right? And it may be, we may, in this one room here, we may have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and then we have 7 people online. That many different opinions of how, of the interplay between the divine and our world. And what it means to choose to be directed, what it means to be inspired divinely, what it means to be inspired from a human perspective of the things that we do in our lives, and how God either directs, or how God inspires, or how God partners with us, how God links with us, how God strengthens our steps, how God guides our steps. All of those things are going to be different reactions with every single person sitting in this room, which is going to be contrasted to it from a biblical theological lens. Does that make?
Yes, I've always considered God and myself co-creators.
Magnificent, right? That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay, so let's see what it says here. Talking about from the Mishnah Torah. It's a positive commandment of rabbinic origin to visit the sick, comfort mourners, to prepare for a funeral, prepare a bride, accompany guests, attend to all the needs of a burial, carry a corpse on one's shoulders, walk before the bier, mourn, dig a grave, and bury the dead, and also to bring joy to a bride and groom and help them in all their needs. These are the deeds of kindness that one carries out with their person that have no limit. Hospitality to wayfarers is greater than welcoming the divine presence. As it is written, he saw 3 men, he ran to meet them. Right, Abraham? Accompanying them is even greater than receiving them. The sages have declared anyone who does not accompany their guest is almost guilty of bloodshed.
Does that mean that when I invite somebody, then I have to go downstairs and ask?
No.
Yeah, and bring them back. Run out to the opening of your tent. And greet them and bring them in. Okay? Wait, so what is this saying and why is it here? When we think about this text, why is this a comment on the text that we just read? What's the significance, Spencer?
We were wayfarers and sometimes we needed people to open the door to us.
Okay.
We understand what it's like to be, hey, we're wandering, and we could use someone to say, welcome, how can I help? How can I accompany you on your journey?
Okay, beautiful. What else?
It's about caring for each other and all these important events in our lives, the funeral, the marrying, all those things. And then a stranger, make them feel that they're cared about in a strange place.
Okay. Jack, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. You know, when I had read this and I sat back and thought about it, I said, who is this written for? It was undoubtedly written for a group of people that did not live through it all. And all the important things that happened in these 38 or 40 years, however you want to define the time, like at Sinai, like the golden calf, like the acceptance of the Torah, like all the battles they were in, nothing personal is mentioned in this. These are just pure facts for posterity. This is the route we took. And therefore, by leaving out all these personal, emotional things, it makes this Parsha, to me, very cold. God is not involved in this, in my opinion. These are the facts of how you got from here to here, and this is for posterity's sake, in case anybody wants to know. All the important things that happened are not even mentioned. And that kind of defines this Parsha to me.
Okay. That's okay. That's good. Okay, Spencer?
To relate this back to the Parsha, I feel like these are important moments. Moving from place to place are important moments. And in each of these moments, you move from place to place. Bride and groom move to their new house, they put a message on their doorway. Corpse unfortunately moves to a mausoleum.
Right, Temple Bethel, phase 4, yeah.
Yeah, we're getting there. But more or less, I mean, look, you prepare a bride, you move from the room you prepare them to the wedding ceremony to, you know.
And it's the movement from one place to the next, which I think is important, but it's also, it's not just the movement, but it's also the accompanying of these different experiences for people, right? It's that, and what the sages are trying to say here is that it wasn't that the people didn't go on this journey on their own, that they were accompanied by God along the way. When one calls on me in Psalms, it says, I will answer them. I will be them in distress. I will rescue them and make them honored. That the rabbis here are saying, like, each of these stages and along every stage of our own lives, we are accompanied. We are accompanied by the people whom we love, with people who are accompanied with us on our journey. We're also accompanied by the divine. And that relationship, that idea of every stage along the way has moments to be divinely inspired. So just an interesting thing. So I wanted us to be able to, yeah.
If you
I'm
go
gonna go
back to that one. What I love about this is similar to like what's not descriptive or told. It's like, I will answer them. Like, you may be answered in the presence of another human being, as opposed to, like, it's so nondescript that it allows us to be like open to, like, I don't know, the wind being the thing in the minutes or whatever. So that to me is very beautiful. Like, it's not, I will appear as a burning bush or whatever. It's like something so specific that if you don't get that in the moment, you don't feel God's presence.
Right, beautiful. I love that. So let's end, I want to end with 2 poems, if we're able to get to both of them. The first one is from Alden Salabi. It's called A Human Journey. And as I think about what Jack has been saying and what in terms of like, this is a very, cold, militaristic tactic, a tactical, like, here's where we went, here's where we said, here's where we went, here's where we went, right? Like, here's all the places. Right? Sometimes our journey can feel that way. I got up and I went out to work. I came home. I went off to university, got my degree, started my job. Right? Like, sometimes that life can feel that way. But here, when I read this poem in relationship to the text of the Parsha and trying to understand what's beyond just the surface level of the text. And what is it trying to teach us? What is it trying to ask us to do on this Shabbat? think in some ways this poem helps to bring that to life for us. So let's read it here. A human journey. My soul needs a human journey. Sometimes I wish it weren't so. Sometimes I wish that pain and suffering had no purpose and no meaning. Or if nothing else, God would share that purpose with me. But no, I must find that meaning myself. Sickness and health, disaster and trauma, the steady drumbeat of death from the moment of birth. My soul needs a human journey. I embrace my fear with an open heart. I embrace my hope and my yearning, never knowing God's answers, releasing the vain notion that God will show up to explain how the foundations of earth were built. My soul needs a human journey. Here is where love resides. Here is where I encounter you, my friends. Here is where I encounter you, my God. Ya Shekhinah Makor HaChaim, source of all, fountain of mystery. Bless the hidden and the revealed. Bless our moments and years. Bless this human journey.
Where is it from?
All in the lobby. And you have it here. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
my little gift to you. My pleasure.
Should we not walk through this journey alone?
Mm. Powerful, huh?
But in order to do that, you really have to be alert. You have to notice the journey and be aware of what's going on. If you go like a robot, it's not gonna happen.
And even if you go like a robot in the moments of the journey, what our Torah is reminding us is to then pause at some point along that journey and reflect and think about what happened along the way. It is not, it doesn't mean that we have to be so super high aware and attentive at all times. I understand that that can seem exhausting and overwhelming, to be that highly attuned all the time. That's next level, right? But to be aware enough to pause along the way and to recount and to remember and to reflect. Oh, that's where the soul meets the human journey. The soul needs those pauses also. The soul needs those moments to reflect on the journey. Then we're gonna end, did you have something?
I just like the way the word needs and must show up in this. It's like, yes, I can do these things, I can embrace, I can encounter, but I need to find the humanity in that in it.
Beautiful. We're gonna end with Life is a Journey by Alvin Fine, and we read this oftentimes at funerals. Yeah. But I just thought it fits so beautifully for today that I wanted to just offer it as we think about Matot Maseh, the idea that our journey through the book of Numbers is coming to a close. The next Shabbat, we'll open up a brand new book, the book of Dvarim, the book of Deuteronomy. And so it's important to stop and pause as we come to a close of Torah, to also sit and reflect on the journey that we've taken to this time. So birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to old age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again. From health to sickness, and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat. Until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage, made stage by stage to life everlasting.
And amen.
Amen, amen. May this Shabbat allow you time to pause on the journey that you are on and grant you the ability to reflect on your journey and the moments of sacred pilgrimage. Shabbat shalom.